Number 4 of 7. Awful Universe yet Awful University. The goal of this episode is to reinforce the proof once more that paradise is the take-home message of the correct translation of the creation story as in Bereshit Genesis verses 1:1 to 2:3. Furthermore, herein we'll give yet another proof that this is the case by parsing the opening word Bereshit in beginning of 1:1a as well as the opening letter Beth 1:1aa. The importance of there being a takeaway lies in the fact that perception is reality, and this is especially so insofar as it comes directly from the very top of the Bible in verse 1:1. Without a takeaway, we roam clueless, without aim or purpose in this awesome world, and running out the clock of our time on earth. In what follows, I'll go as far as explain with toys, paper, and scissors the gist of the creation story regarding recreating on our part to make for a happy ending in this world. Still, I'm no magician. This requires your undivided attention. It's not a pill to sleep with and awake knowing it all effortlessly. That said, let's start with a quick recap of what we have up to now. Moses tells us in the wording itself of the creation story that reality is sort of like a chain of 4 links, that the way to correctly read verse 1:1 is like a 4-page foldable, such that the one freestanding link connects as well as first link to the second one, with the rest in turn connecting in succession to the fourth one. This verse 1:1 unfolds as a chain of 1s freestanding link and a triad PRD of interconnected links as follows. Sod 1 in beginning of, Derash 2 in beginning of created Elohim, Remes 3 created Elohim language with you, Peshat 4 Elohim is dialogue with the heavens and dialogue with the earth. Additionally, recall the associations we made with each of the individual links when dealing with interpretation, namely Sod, secret awe, Derash, discover, homiletical, Remes, remit, allegorical, and Peshat, plain, literal. Please see accompanying slide. The above will serve from now onwards as template for what follows. The idea being that the takeaway paradise cuts all across the board. Let's now do a quick review of the Hebrew alphabet, or Aleph Bet. The first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph A, is not the first letter of Bereshit in beginning of, verse 1:1. By the way, it is a silent letter. Instead, the second letter of the alphabet, Beth B, is the first letter of Genesis verse 1:1. The geometry of the letter Beth B facilitates the flow of the creation story. The letter Beth B serves as interface between, on the one hand, the first letter silent Aleph A, and on the other hand, the third running letter of the alphabet Gimel, G, corresponding to our C. The lower part of the Beth B points backwards, towards the silent Aleph A, whereas its upper part bends slightly up and forward. The mouth of the letter Beth B opens frontward, in the direction of the Gimel G. The letter Gimel G evokes a person walking. In narrative, the opening letter Beth B of the creation story is telling us, don't go down and back, rather go up and forward. Please see accompanying slide. It seems to be the case that the Torah teaching is so intuitive that it encrypts a narrative even at the pre-language stage of things. This we now present regarding the silent one and first letter of the Hebrew alphabet Aleph A. Please see accompanying slide. The first word in question is actually composite, as is common in biblical Hebrew. As we already know, it consists of 3 parts, or more accurately, it's a triad, PRD, as one whole S. That is, the first part of the word Bereshit in beginning of is Be, in, and corresponds to Peshat, plain. The second part of the word is Resh, beginning, and corresponds to Remes, remit. It's actually head, though it is understood as beginning in archaic Hebrew. Lastly, the third part of the word in question is it, off, and corresponds to discover, derash. When this letter Taf, T, appears at the end of a word, it serves as genitive or possessive case signifying of. Finally, the unparsed whole word as such is Bereshit in beginning of, without further ado, and corresponds to sought, secret, awe. Please see accompanying slide. Now let me insert a cue. The lucky break is that Resh, head, happens to mean the same as the silent first letter of the alphabet, Aleph A. By the way, the Aleph A means head, the Beth B means house, and the Gimel G means camel. Please see accompanying slide. Let me do a quick timeline of what we've covered so far in this quest for the missing takeaway of verse 1:1. The starting point is the Torah teaching. Next, the arrowhead of the whole Bible is the creation story of Bereshit in beginning of 1:1 to 2:3, where it all starts. Of this, in turn, we keep narrowing it down to day 1, 1 to 5, and then tighter still to verse 1:1, and finally to word 1:1a. Please see accompanying slide. Now we're in position to make use of the cue that Resh and Aleph both mean head, which is the same as beginning. Creation proper starts with the letter Beth B and purposely not with the Aleph A, which is silent, as if telling us that language is the way to go and only in the afterlife can we explore silence as such. However, we can come close to it by way of Bereshit in Genesis of, in beginning of 1:1 to 2:3, with its paradise takeaway as spelled out in the creation story. Please see accompanying slide. The conclusion is that we cannot access the silent from the audible, the afterlife while living, at best by way of the recivilization principle of paradise, which is to say by doing our part in the Maseh Bereshit, work of creation. Let's now cross the T's and dot the I's before moving on. Recall that things come in triads, meaning that whole things flesh out in language as triads 3 in 1. This Bereshit in head off is certainly no exception, rather an affirmation to confirm the golden rule. It seems to be the case that this Bereshit in head off is actually more like the average. In our lingo, that means that it is a remit part. That is, in paradise terminology, we would then have as follows. In beginning of, Peshat. In head of, Remes. In Aleph of, Derash. And all the while the plain Aleph A, Sod. Let's put this in our usual user-friendly form for ease of remembering. Please see accompanying slide. What the above is doing is spelling paradise out loud letter by letter. That is, in beginning of characterizes Peshat, plane, the audible as mass space-time, the physical world or the body. Likewise, in Aleph of is characterizing the Rosh, discover, as a silent or the spiritual, what ultimately connects with the Aleph A, the absolute silence of the infinite sought secret. Finally, in head of is characterizing Rem as remit, as back and forth mental between the body and the spirit. Well, we'll have to leave it there for the time being. Please keep viewing the remaining episodes for a complete sense of the enjoyable movie. I have the calling to serve, the message of paradise to disseminate, and the mission of re-civilization in America to realize. Entra la bola, no seas canica. Keep weird, folks. U.S. Senate, Texas, 2020, and the Nobel Peace Prize as soon as possible. In a nutshell, it's either paradise, promised world right now, or else hell of dualism on earth from now to eternity. Yours truly, Rick, and GD bless.